Hello and welcome to Heli Market Trends Live. I'm Emmanuel Dupuy, co-founder of Aero Asset. Thank you very much for joining today's roundtable, which brings together leading OEM voices from, in alphabetical order, Airbus and Leonardo helicopters to share their perspective on the global helicopter market, in particular, the outlook, whether the landscape is changing, how supply chains are improving, and how production strategies and regional priorities are evolving. To moderate this session, who better than ex-president and CEO of Airbus Inc., now CEO of Howell Instruments, someone who has been in the helicopter industry since the early 1980s, a monocoque racing car enthusiast. I'm honored to call him a friend. It is my pleasure to introduce Marc Paganini.
Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Here it's Texas time, and you recognize, I'm sure, my Texas accent today.
It's great to see you, Marc. And I'm sorry I mentioned you were in the industry since the early 80s, but it does give you really amazing perspective to comment on the current state of the industry and obviously to moderate the session. And before we do that, can you give us some insight as to what Howell Instrument does?
Yes, when I retired from Airbus, I did a little bit of a consulting job, and I did also I took the position of CEO at Howell Instrument, which is a company based in Fort Worth, Texas, which is manufacturing engine test set, but it's also very involved in modernization of legacy aircraft. In particular, we are working on a glass cockpit to equip the Black Hawk and the CH-47, which are sold by the U.S. military, the surplus of the U.S. Army through the BEST program. And we are modifying their antiquated cockpit with a brand new glass cockpit, and we are in the process today of certifying it with the FAA. We are also working on several legacy programs of Airbus and Bell. So we have it's a small company, but it's about 80 people. But it's a very interesting mission to continue to give life to these old aircraft, which are now flying 20, 25, 30 years, and it's interesting to do that.
Well, I think in light of some of the themes that you're going to approach today with your speakers, it makes total sense to continue investing in the legacy markets, the pre-owned markets. So I will let you introduce your speakers.
Yes, thank you, Emmanuel. So we have a very distinguished panel today. Very good experienced people. They are representing Leonardo and Airbus. We have Giacomo Zampetti, who is the VP marketing of Leonardo Helicopters. Giacomo has been in Augusta Westland and Leonardo for many years, and he had a very interesting experience there between manufacturing planning and business development and head of business planning, and then chief of staff of Leonardo managing director, and since 2023 he's now in charge of marketing for Leonardo. Welcome, Giacomo.
Thank you, Marc, and very pleased to be here on the webinar by Aero Asset. Thank you.
We have also Mike Bucari at Leonardo Helicopter as well, based in the US, in Philadelphia, if I understand well. Mike also has a very strong experience in marketing and strategic initiative across the America. He has a long experience in aviation and aerospace. He has been working on aligning Leonardo regional operation with global objectives, and he plays a key role strengthening partnership with government, commercial, and emergency service operators. And Mike is also a key player to position Leonardo as a partner and industry innovator in vertical lift industry, vertical lift solution. Welcome, Mike.
Excellent. Thank you, Marc. Appreciate the invite and can't wait for the panel.
Now on the Airbus side, I would like to welcome David Prevor, who is in charge of market intelligence, research, and forecasting. David today leads this market intelligence research forecast department at Airbus Helicopter. He's responsible for synthesizing global economic trends and fleet data to predict demand across short, medium, and long-term horizon. David played a key role in defining the business cases for new helicopter launches and driving sustainable organizational growth. David has also very interesting experience in the fixed wing, since he's been in marketing on the fixed wing of the commercial aircraft, and he has also been part of the development and the certification of the S340 and the S330 program. So it's a long experience both on the fixed wing and the rotary wing industry, which is quite valuable here.
Thanks, Marc. It's a pleasure to be with you and with my friends from Leonardo Helicopters.
Thank you.
And finally, I would like to welcome Nitin Sareen, who is the head of marketing for North America. He's responsible in Airbus Helicopter North America for overall market development and sales support efforts across the civil, parapublic, and military product, plus the support and services of Airbus Helicopter. He's been with Airbus Helicopter for 20 years, and he has worked across the marketing, sales, and business development roles at both central and regional roles across Europe, North America, and Asia. And I think Nitin is very interested also about the ongoing transition in the helicopter and vertical lift industry.
Thank you, Marc, and good to be with you all.
So let's start this panel, this roundtable, and I'm sure it's going to be a very fruitful exchange with all the experience that we have gathered today. Let's start maybe with today, I would say, news question. We've just been out of Verticon about 2 weeks ago, and I think it would be interesting to have from you, on both Leonardo and Airbus, what are your main takeaway from this show? So let's start with Leonardo.
Mike, if you don't mind, I'll start and then handing over to you. Thanks, Marc, for raising this question. Yes, it's been really exciting, the week of Verticon. And there is a lot of movement. In general, the market is continuing in a steady growth trajectory, and you can see this kind of vibe thanks to the interactions and people that are on the trade show floor, which was quite busy this year. So we are for sure in a very interesting moment because from a dynamics perspective, the marketing is growing, and this is anyway good for all of us and for all the players in the industry. This is not only being reflected in the, let me say, market dynamics, but also in the news that you can hear about new products or revamp of new products and technologies, which is happening. There are for sure some segments that are driving this growth in the civil market, I think to EMS, but also offshore. And there is a lot of interest in adapting new technologies. I've seen a couple of examples of new unmanned product or optionally piloted product, which is giving the sign that it's an active market, it's an active industry. So all in all, good, and we need to keep the space going forward, despite, you know, the news, the macroeconomic news that unfortunately in those days are affecting and are touching everybody. We cannot hide that. But in general, there is optimism, and this is a good news for everybody. Mike, I don't know what you think about on your perspective.
Excellent. I agree completely. And I was saying this to a colleague right after Verticon. It actually felt like the first time since pre-COVID that the amount of individuals that were at the show were at pre-COVID levels. And that takes in part what is happening currently over in Iran and a lot of the, let's call it Middle East and Asian countries that could not travel. So it really shows the growth dynamic of the market, to echo Giacomo's point. One of the other things that I have seen and Verticon definitely reiterated it is the use of dual use platform. You're seeing a lot of government entities look at what the commercial market has to offer and transitioning that into a military platform. And it's not just here with the U.S. government or foreign military sales, but we're seeing a significant growth in that space. One of the other things that I saw from Verticon was also the use of technology, but specifically in the training platforms. With us, we have our VXR, which is our virtual reality training platform for our lighter products. But you're starting to see that come throughout the market, whether it be through our competitors, both on the OEM side or through the training platform. So you're starting to see that technology integrate into not only the platforms, but on the services and the training platforms as well.
Thank you, Mike. So what about Airbus?
Maybe I can start to give some view from our side, just to complement what has been said already. We all know Verticon. I think every one of us was there, but for the benefit of people that probably are on this call and didn't go to Atlanta. So obviously coming back to Atlanta from Dallas the year before, which in recent times was probably the biggest Verticon that we had, was a tall order. But what we saw really in terms of even the vibe in Atlanta was quite palpable. Actually, the attendance level was pretty high, almost similar to the Dallas levels, which was quite surprising. And we all know, I mean, Verticon, we call it Verticon now, but you know, Heli Expo, as we call it, is really the Super Bowl of our industry. It is the biggest, trade show of our industry. And what we've seen, obviously, is, as has been said by our Leonardo colleagues, is that the vibe and the energy was right there. Now, what does an OEM look for going into a show like that? You know, we are looking for basically mission impact, which means in a way that we want to make sure that our products are basically perceived to add value in missions that are becoming increasingly complex and critical. And then the second thing that we are looking for is validation. And obviously, given that we have the who's who of the industry, and by that I mean the entire stakeholders across the industry, that includes our customers, our suppliers, our co-OEMs, and other stakeholders from the industry. They're all there. And so from that point of view, really what we did this year, taking a leaf out of our unveiling of the H140 in Dallas the year before, was we unveiled the ACH 140 cabin at Verticon this year. We also brought the first H160 in EMS configuration, which was received very well, as well really a state-of-the-art law enforcement configured 145, which was on display, along with a 125, which continues to be really the bread and butter of the helicopter industry. So all in all, great momentum. We heard from our customers around not only in terms of, as has been talked about, the geopolitical as well as a certain macroeconomic factors that are playing on the market today. However, from a support and services point of view as well, this is an opportunity for us to really, as you know, Mark, spend some quality time with all of our customers. And all in all, it was a very fruitful and satisfying experience for Airbus Helicopters.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's this Verticon show is the best way to get to your customer and listen to their needs and requirements. Talking about that, did you see what was the representation in terms of EMS and oil and gas? Still two leading markets, for example, for the North American market. If I just put looking at the North American, how the customer were?
Yeah, certainly, as you know, EMS has been, in fact, the leading market segment in the last couple of years in North America. Again, going back to 2024 Verticon, where we unveiled the H140, which basically, fits very beautifully in the EMS space. And we announced a ton of bookings of the H140. But that was also in line with what we were seeing with the North American EMS market space. If you really look at the EMS market space in North America, 70% of the EMS fleet is basically 3 or 4 key operators. You have Air Methods, you have GMR, you have Metro, you have PHI Health. They constitute about 70% of the EMS operations in North America. And what we've seen, Mark, in the last couple of years is a large percentage of bookings that have happened in North America have been fleet replacements on part of these key accounts. So obviously that dynamic was there. And, extending even beyond the North American market, I would say that we saw, and this is out there in media and press releases, we also announced a bunch of other 140 orders, even in Europe, around EMS.
And you at Leonardo, I think you have been very active in the past in VIP aircraft, in oil and gas. To give some example, how was the show for you, the customer?
Giacomo,
I'll take and then
please
just give a little bit of more perspective. Of course, EMS is a very interesting market because we see a steady growth. But in this very moment, there is also energy, as you mentioned, so offshore, that is keeping us very, very busy. Specifically in Verticon, we announced a continuation of a very strong relationship with Lufttransport, which is an oil and gas operator in Norway. He added other 3 189 to his fleet that is basically ramping up in the last couple of years from 0 in energy up to 2021, roughly, including those latest 3, which is a sign that there is a lot of momentum also in the energy market. And actually, what is driving the energy market, at least from our perspective, is more the supply, because demand is there. And probably there is a matter of equilibrium to keep But thanks God, in this very moment, we're enjoying a nice moment in which we have a beautiful product line that fits in all the possible, let me say, declination in the energy market, spanning from crew change, high density, up to windmill or wind farm operations. And I think there are worthwhile example in the US that Mike can mention about windmill operation. And of course, VIP market remains, a kind of bread and butter. Is not at the very moment the high volume segment in our throughput, but is always there. So this is something on which we continue to leverage, and independently on the regions, of course, then there may be some different drivers. So in some regions, we are there with larger aircraft. In some other regions, with smaller aircraft, but it's there. I don't know if you want to complement something on your perspective or US, Mike.
Oh, of course. And you kind of hit the nail on the head, especially from the energy market perspective. We obviously have a large fleet within the Gulf of Mexico with the 139 and the 189 operating down there. But where we've seen a significant increase over the last 18 to 24 months and a little bit beyond that is in the offshore energy market or offshore wind market. And that offshore wind market has been very fruitful for us with the AW169 in providing crew change out to the windmills based off of Rhode Island, the coast there. And then we have another operation starting off the coast of Virginia here early this year with the 169. Additionally to that, we're starting to see a lot more opportunities within what we call the harbor pilot. And it's a very niche market here in the United States, but that harbor pilot is something that is an extremely, the helicopter is an extremely useful tool inside that marketplace because it significantly makes the operation a lot more efficient, getting the harbor pilots out to the ship so that they can get them into port instead of utilizing the boats that was what they have done over the last 60 plus years. To echo off of the EMS market a little bit too, we do see a lot of, let's call it demand for, let's call it fleet regeneration inside the US EMS market, and not just US, but also Canada as well. We can throw that into there. And we feel the AW169 has a very good value prop with that. And you're starting to see a little bit of a catch onto there as well. But yes, it's a very dynamic market, especially here in North America. But if you look at energy, EMS, and then add corporate VIP, especially in the Northeast, we're constantly busy trying to fulfill that demand.
Thank you. So if we go beyond vertical, what is did it change? Or is it the continuation of your assessment of the market evolution this year and in the next 3 to 5 years? Maybe, David, you could elaborate on that?
Yeah, so perhaps just to wrap up everything that has been said, 2025, the order intake was a high, 760 aircraft booked of the year. So it's above the 2019 levels. So we are back actually to the pre-COVID levels in terms of order intake. So we say this is good for the civil and public. And even on military, actually, we've seen an increase. Actually, the market has almost doubled on the military. But I would put the military on the side. Actually, looking more in details, what we see as well is that commercial has been pretty stable, EMS stable, private and business aviation with almost 300 units actually booked, still actually a huge market. And this is where actually, but rather on the light singles, I would say in a way, but also for the other aircraft types. Public services, we've seen a small decrease, but it's mainly driven by the fact that 2024 was a really good year for public services, especially with the BPOL deal for 44 H225. So actually it has kind of stimulated the market, but I would say that public services is at a normal level. And on the energy, actually what we see as well is that because people waited a little bit too long actually to replace some assets they were using for, I would say, period of time that was perhaps sometimes too long, there has been a small decrease in terms of market, basically because there was a surge starting in 2023, then 24, and 25 we've seen a small actually decrease in terms of market size or order intake. And it's also because today what we see is that both Leonardo and us actually we have a huge backlog and now we need to deliver. So now actually I think there was also a question of lead time. So we were get by surprise in a way. The success of the 175, but also on the 89 actually are saturating, I would say, in a way, our false. So we need actually to increase our production rates to accommodate the demand. And therefore, actually, I would say that 2025 was actually in this increasing trend. So the fleet in service is growing, order intake is actually satisfying both growth and replacement, and we are on a kind of on a good track. Having said that, when we look at what is going on right today, when we look at the latest figures from Global Insight, they are still anticipating a GDP growth in 2026 at 2.6%. So it's not a small GDP growth. It's a little bit below 2025. That was at 2.9. And so, but this is the baseline scenario as of today. But then we have the risks. And today, everybody may be concerned about potential recessions. So I would say that but it's not the baseline, it's more risk. And depending on how long will be the war and other parameters, actually, this risk can materialize or not. And this is where we are today. But if we come back to I would say the long-term demand, it's driven by economy, but economy influence mostly actually growth of the fleet in service. But we have also an aging fleet in almost all market segments, being EMS, oil and gas, and so on. And these fleets needs to be replaced. So actually you have this, I would say, this robust part of the demand that will still be there because people need to replace the assets that they have. You know, police won't decrease the fleet in service. They need the helicopters. So at some point they will be too old, so they will need to replace them. So I would say that we still believe that actually there is growth. The growth actually, perhaps in terms of fleet in service this year, maybe more at a lower pace, but still the demand for replacement is rather huge. Keep in mind that we have 25,000 helicopters in service today, and these helicopters need to be replaced, and some of them actually start to be really old now. So this is where we are. So rather positive trajectory with some headwinds on the short term, but to be confirmed or not, depending of geopolitics.
Thank you. So if you look at the two leading markets for helicopters, which are EMS and oil and gas, let's talk about oil and gas. I mean, there is a significant shift in the industry, oil and gas industry in the US toward more exploration, more production, which is not what's happening in Europe. How do you see that the evolution of the market for you? Do you see the oil and gas company investing again in offshore? And there are some discussion about reinvesting the money from the wind farm to the oil and gas production from the Trump administration. How do you see that evolving for you in Leonardo and Airbus? You are two very big suppliers of this industry. So how do you see that?
I can go first. It doesn't matter.
Yes, yeah, go first. We'll go first.
So for the U.S. Side of things, you're starting to see our demand is ever increasing. It's never going to remain stable in terms of demand for the oil that we need. Our economy runs on oil. So you're starting to see that, with what the geopolitical issues that are currently ongoing over in the Middle East, it's really starting to hit folks at the pump here in the U.S., which then drives inflation and then can stall the economy. And that's what President Trump does not want. So you're going to start seeing some, we believe, indicators to start looking at exploration, to further do exploration, not only in the Gulf of Mexico, but other places as well. Whether it be off the shore, off the coast of California, or even off the East Coast, you'll start to see that exploration kind of increase a little bit, especially as the price per barrel continues to climb. But it's there. I will say through President Biden, there was a very big push for the green initiative, hence why the offshore wind market really started taking off here in the United States, and it is an offset to the oil industry. However, it is known here throughout that we're going to have to continue to explore within the Gulf of Mexico, and that means farther out, which you're looking at much bigger aircraft, where you're 175, 189 for the two of us that are sitting here, but also inclusion of potentially the 609 when that comes to fruition for really long range missions.
And Airbus, what is your take?
So I would say, not sure, or perhaps Nitin, if you want to talk about the US specifically, but on a worldwide level, I would say that exploration never stopped. It only slowed down, but it was 3-4 years ago. So I share the comment is it will increase the demand for helicopters with a higher range. So the 175 actually being an example. It can also be an opportunity for the 225 to come back, because today it may be the only helicopter available actually to go beyond 200 nautical miles. With a 609. So yes, there is a potential, need to be confirmed actually if it's something that can be managed by the current fleet in service, or if actually they need additional helicopters. So I would say that when we think about the future of the oil and gas market, we are rather conservative. We prefer to think about actually a stable fleet in service. We know that in Brazil, for example, there is growth. So, it's a little bit simplistic what I'm saying here. But yes, there are a lot of upsides that actually we are following, because you are right, exploration can increase again, and even production, because actually you are now blocked actually in the Middle East, even the production elsewhere can increase. And even what we see in the Gulf of Mexico is that there were some platforms that were supposed to close, and we see that the life of these platforms are extended over the years, actually because you have productivity gain, you are more efficient technologically, so you can extract more fuel than actually they thought they would be able to extract. So we also see the old platform actually still alive and still actually producing oil. So actually it's also something that I believe actually may stimulate a little bit the market, because we already thought that actually they will close down.
And just to add, oil and gas or energy is now seen as more linked to sovereignty of a country. So, this is becoming so critical here in the US, as well as I would even add Canada from that point of view. Now, typically, if you go back in time, and as Mark, the oil and gas fleet that we've had, the helicopter fleet, is not the conventional fleet, oil and gas fleet that we see in other parts of the world. There was a lot of single engine, and there continue to be a lot of single engine aircraft and lighter aircraft that are used in the Gulf. But there is an evolution there, that you will see a shift between the single engine to more like a lighter twin, perhaps even some more mediums. There is some heavy helicopters there already. But from our point of view, we are well positioned to answer all of those product category needs.
So you come from vertical, and your forecasts are quite a bit for this year as well. So what are you doing in terms of production? You mentioned that you have now to increase your production rate. What is what are your plans, without revealing any secret, of course, but what are your plans at Leonardo and Airbus to cope with this increase of demand, knowing that most of these aircraft have long lead time? So are you feeling sufficiently confident in the market to invest in increasing production rates significantly over the next 2 to 3 years?
If you want, I can elaborate a little bit on what we're doing in Leonardo. Because Mark, the beauty or the challenge, if you want, in this very moment is that we are enjoying, this is for us, but I think it's the same for our friends of Airbus, a very good momentum in both civil and military market. So necessarily we need to adapt to this market dynamics after a period, COVID and the different crises that followed, where in a way or in another, the robustness of our supply chain was affected. So what we are doing in Leonardo is trying to develop as much as possible local partnership involving supply chain in more strategic projects, or converting supply chain that was devoted to other kind of industry into helicopters or aviation industries. Of course, we have a very large footprint, industrial footprint in Italy, and this initiative has started in Italy. But we are trying to adapt this model in other geographies where we have industrial bases. Just an example, there is also UK, because we need to cope with the award finally of the NMH program to provide a good answer in terms of the supply chain, etc. So we are working from one side to change the relationship with our suppliers, so bringing in new suppliers, and at the same time to specialize some specific plants to specific productions in order to avoid, let me say, a lot of congestions in the same plants. So all in all, also because we have new types coming in, we are also working to set up our industrial capacity also to welcome the 09 that is sure to come to the market. So those are all the things that we're working on. And of course, we are exploring opportunity for localizing production outside of the normal countries. There is nowadays a lot of momentum in India, for example, and this is something where we are thinking, thanks to the different programs that are active there. And so those are the recipes that more or less we are trying to adopt in order to cope with this specific moment. Of course, and this is specifically, you know, the military market can be up and down. We are in a up phase. Probably the civil is more steady. What we need to avoid, and specifically talking about energy market, are situation where there is an imbalance between demand and supply, because then this can affect our production capacity and then as a ripple effect our supply chains. So the role of let me say, keeping this balance between demand and supply, specifically in markets that in a way are sensible to macroeconomics effects like the energy, it's very important. So try to act not too much speculatively and more strategically. With the oil price at this level, 10 years ago, there were many investments. Now there is more cautiousness among the different actors, and I think this is the good attitude in order not to find ourselves in disruption situation that we faced 10-15 years ago.
I would say that for Airbus, it's we are almost in the same ballpark. So we are referring to India. On our side, actually, we have established a new FAL in India for the 125 as an example as well, to try to address this increasing demand. On the 145, for example, over the last 2 years, we've increased our production rate on a yearly basis by 10 to 15%, to give you a flavor. And we are actually implementing a new FAL to produce actually even more 145. So it's not only driven by the civil market, it's also driven by the military demands that we have today and that we need to address. That's why actually we are increasing these production rates. 160 as well, we need to increase, and we anticipate to increase even further once actually we start to deliver the M variant, as that is already actually in the test phase today for the French army. So actually we are increasing, I would say, almost in all our programs or production rates to accommodate the demand and to try to reduce the lead time for the customers, because the customers some years ago, or even let's say 15 years ago, the lead time may have been 18 months for a product. Today, because we are saturated, on some specific programs, actually they may need to wait more than 2 years, and this is not acceptable. And that's why actually we are increasing our production rates actually to accommodate the demand. And the demand is robust enough today that actually we do it. So it's not actually just a one shot. You won't invest for 1 year of production. We know that actually this is something that is sustainable over the years.
Well, that's very good news for the overall industry.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if we move a little bit from market and sales, let's talk a little bit about new product, new services, and we talk, I believe, about new product in training as well at Leonardo, and about new technology development. Let's start to have a discussion about that. I will start, but don't hesitate to bring some other subject. I will start with the high-speed helicopter. You have all of you have project maturing or very close to mature, like the 609 on the high speed. Airbus, you have the Racer. At Bell, you have the Valor, which is not the MD-75. How do you see this technology? How do you see the market? Is it the breakthrough technology for the helicopter industry, or is just a way to respond to a special market need? Let's start with Leonardo.
Okay, thanks for the question. Of course, talking about new technologies or investments in new things, for us, the 609 is a very important chapter. 609 for us means high-speed fast rotorcraft, and it's our recipe, the architecture of the tilt rotor. Then there are other solutions like what, for example, Airbus is doing. Now, without going into the specific of the, let me say, of the architecture choice, for sure, the reasons why more or less all the OEMs have moved into this kind of trend is because there is a demand. There is a demand to go to break to a certain extent the typical limits of helicopters that beyond a certain range or beyond a certain speed, architecturally, regardless of the amount of innovation that you can put in, you have to go. So this is the reasons we've been investing, specifically in Leonardo. We have massively investing in this. For sure, the decision made by the US DoD, in particular the US Army, to adopt within the FLORA program the MV-75 has given a sign that one of the most important users of helicopters in the world, the US Army, has adopted a fast rotorcraft technology and specifically tilt rotor. So this will bring some consequences because anyway they're pioneering. Then it's going to be tilt rotor for everybody. It's going to be a mixture of the architecture we will see going forward. But for sure there is a demand, there is a need that we are trying to fill it up. How quick we will be able to fill it up, this need, it will depend also on the investment and the involvement of key users in developing the use cases for the adoption of those technologies. But we see the future there. And actually, if you want, at the end of the day, we didn't talk about urban air mobility or advanced air mobility. But if you see, at the end of the day,
we will talk about that. I think it's important.
Yeah, just touching a little bit. Basically, the ones that are surviving, because there is a lot of dynamics also in that sector, are anyway companies that are adopting technologies or architectures that mix the wings with propellers, wings and rotors. And I don't know, Mike, if you want to mention something about the DIPP program that is very important and probably.
Sure. And it goes into AIM and the eVTOL. But with the AW609, we are trying to participate in the EIPP plan through the Florida Department of Transportation, where we're going to integrate the 609 over the next few years and do some, let's call it mission scenarios that illustrates its capabilities through this EIPP program. And thankfully, Florida Department of Transportation is allowing us to continue to move through with this and be a global partner. But it also coincides with our Florida Part 145, our new one that is located in Milton, Florida. So we have infrastructure there to help support. But going into to kind of tie into what Giacomo was saying, you see a little bit of a disruption in the marketplace right now. We know what conventional fixed wing is. We know what conventional rotorcraft is. And we as the OEM, we're constantly looking at what's aviation like 20 years from now. We have to kind of always think strategically, tactically all the time, but strategically as well. And where is the aviation market going? And you're starting to see these AAMs be disruptors in the market. And you're starting to see that the conventional ways of how we used to do things, there are other ways to do it. And you're starting to see these folks lead the way and also stimulate the market, our customers, on a manner of our operations, our typical operations today, as we do it today, that actually can be changed with these platforms in the future. And you're starting to see a lot of operators, especially here in the US on the EMS side, how can these be integrated into their system or their operation to help make them a little bit more efficient? So we as the OEM are constantly looking forward with the 609, but we're very interested in seeing how this progresses through the market and how actually our customers and the market accept and adapt these technologies.
That's very exciting, Tom. What do you say at Airbus? How do you see that at Airbus?
So definitely there is a demand for speed, and this demand actually is a little bit complicated, I would say, to make a long story short. It's when you talk to a customer, he will chase speed, but once actually you put the bill on the table about what will be the acquisition cost, what will be the operational cost, actually it's not so simple, and the guys may actually change their mind. So on our side, the way we are looking at the situation, and that's why we are working on the racer, is actually we are trying to find the compromise between speed and cost efficiency, but also mission performance. Because actually the high-speed solutions sometimes actually may limit your performances in some missions. So actually you can gain on the speed, but once actually you are in the battlefield, actually your solution may be less efficient. So this is where we are today. So we are working on the racer. We have our technology. We've demonstrated that we can cruise at 440 kilometers per hour. So actually, I would say this is actually already good performance. We are working as well on an eco mode hybrid system that may increase actually or decrease the fuel burn by almost 25%. And also to open a little bit the envelope, to be able to fly at hot and high and all of these things. So this is where we are, and we're trying to, to find the optimum between the speed and the cost efficiency, because this is actually what our customers are looking for. Otherwise, actually, if you are only focusing on speed, you will end up with a market of 2 helicopters per year, or only 2 armies in the world that will be able to buy it. So this is where we are, and we are trying and investigating all the paths possible actually to be as efficient as possible. But it also actually, I would say, beyond the concept itself, for us, it's also a way actually to test technologies that we will be able as well actually to apply on our current portfolio, not only on the high speed, but also on other products. So we leverage as well on this high speed topic actually to work on other topics like weight, fuel savings, and all these things.
And just to add to what David said, I think that's very key, that you look at it from a technological evolution point of view and an innovation point of view, rather than putting that technology in a silo, that everything around a high-speed helicopter remains in a high-speed helicopter. But there may be some developments that can actually help even conventional helicopters today. And then as you go from the conventional helicopter industry of today to perhaps more like what we call the vertical lift industry of the future, that combines both crewed and uncrewed elements to it. There you have possibilities where you can integrate all these technologies. For example, just one small example, rotor strike alert system that we've tested on our helicopters. Now there is actually a business case, and we are moving ahead with implementing it in one of our platforms that's useful to customers today. As the evolution happens, then if you really look at it from where it's going, because as eVTOLs and high-speed helicopters have been talked about for many years, but we saw coming about back to Verticon, we saw a bunch of them a couple years back were displaying eVTOL platforms, and then we saw for about a year or 2 years them disappear. This year we see them appear again a little bit. But the Airbus view, in our opinion, is don't see this as in isolation, but more technological bricks that can be implemented on products of today and then leading into the future.
Well, the other thing, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the other thing that I was going to say is, as the evolution of batteries and the energy management systems, or the technologies or the equipment that go on to these systems continues to increase, it will also increase our efficiencies on these platforms as well. So we have to take that into consideration.
Okay, so if I may put you on the spot, Airbus, you have today Leonardo is going to be certifying the 609 by the end of the year, maybe early next year, but it's very close to certification. You have Bell, who is now developing the new tilt rotor, which should be operational by 27, 28. When do you see Airbus on this market?
It's a good question, Marc. Thanks. Now, to be on the serious side, it's, as I said it before, it's at this stage we are on this trade-off approach. There are, I would say, opportunities that are coming after 2030 for this kind of applications, and this is what we are targeting at. So it's not something actually that you will be able to sell or to buy over the next 2 to 3 years, but rather actually after the 2030 period. because we believe that today's technologies are not mature enough to be efficient. So I wish good luck to Leonardo.
Thank you. So let's
Thank
talk
you.
about the unmanned and the eVTOL, because as you say, there has been a big subject of conversation over the years about this platform replacing helicopters. Whatever it's true or not, whatever it will happen or not, I'd like to have a little bit of your point of view. As you said, there is a lot of changes in the industry. A lot of companies, startup companies, disappeared. Some of them were very optimistic in terms of certification of their products. We have not seen yet, I believe, any certified eVTOL today. So what's your take on this? And I know that you are all working on this technology.
No.
So
It's-
what is your take about that? Where is it positioning? Is it on the margin of the helicopter market, or is it going to take some of the helicopter markets? Or is it going to replace everything in the future? What is your take on that?
So if
go.
I don't know.
You go.
Go on.
You go.
Yeah.
I think we have the same answer anyway on this point.
I will-
If we're talking about, let me say, eVTOL, frankly speaking, in the short to medium term, we don't see them to be a threat for helicopters, because despite the number of funds, the money that has been put into all the new companies, the tech startup that are developing eVTOLs, to me there are a couple of hurdles that are not easy to solve in the short to medium term. And one is the technology. If we talking about full electrical vertical takeoff vehicles, the power density of the current battery, and also considering the evolution of current batteries, won't be as such to give the power density necessary to have those vehicles flying safely with the same safety levels that are required for helicopters. And this is one. The second is going to be, to my perspective, the overall business model and business plan, which is not that easy, because those technology have been claimed since the very beginning to be very on the lower side in terms of costs. A little bit of intelligence and also the investments that they've been doing, I don't think they will be so far from helicopters, but with much less capabilities, at least at the beginning. So where I see them probably having a tap into the market is more on the logistics side, where they can effectively move loads in not, let me say, urban dense environment, so without putting at risk human lives. So probably serving the offshore for cargo logistic and resupply, but moving people, I don't see them to be there in the next short or on medium term. At least this is my view. Don't know the others.
No, so on our side, actually, we believe that there are actually, even today, so we have a portfolio of drones actually that exist already today: Aliaka, Flex Rotor, Kappa X, VSR 700, and 145 air logistic connector. But they are dedicated to specific missions. So if we talk about Flex Rotor, we are talking about ISR missions, surveillance over the sea for the armies, border control. So you are right, actually, Giacomo. It's regulation prevent actually at this stage actually to fly over a city, for example. So, but still there is a market, but when we are talking about this market, actually it's not in cannibalization of helicopters, because we are talking about the drones that is able to fly over 12 hours. And then you are right. Actually, these drones actually can be also operated in conjunction with helicopters. That's why we have launched our H teaming. So today we can offer H teaming on all our helicopters. Actually, it's a solution where actually you can pilot drones from the helicopter. Our solution, by the way, is agnostic. It can fly with all drones or even drones from all competitors. And it will open, I would say, some mission capabilities to the helicopter. For example, for attack missions, you will be able to launch the drones and to actually to get all the information you want and actually to be safer. So this is one part. On the other part as well, actually, when we look at what we are doing on the 145, we believe that some drones in the future actually will be actually unmanned helicopters, because you need the payload and so on, and actually the helicopter actually can do it. It just, as Giacomo said, it's yes for logistic missions. We believe that actually there is a future to do logistics, because it's simple. You go from the boat to the coast, for example, or you have the army that actually needs to some logistic missions, and with all the shortage of pilots that they have today, actually it's a good solution for them. The other solution, but it's also on the military, will be for attack on anti-surface missions, where actually drones will be able actually to perform some dangerous missions that today may be costly from a human point of view, but even I would say from a cost point of view, to be performed by helicopters. So I say that actually drones are complementing helicopters, and they can, in some cases, actually substitute to helicopters. But it will be a helicopter that will substitute the helicopter. Just one will be with one pilot, and the other one will be without a pilot. So all in all, I would say that drones are likely even to enhance helicopters' capabilities. So they will be actually the friend of the helicopter, and they will have actually their own market, because today a helicopter cannot fly 12 hours in a row, except if Leonardo has something in their pipeline.
Never know.
You never know.
Any other thought on this subject?
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing for us in the US with respect to that is the competition that we are part of since 2024, launched by the US Marine Corps, where we are actually converting the 145 into an unmanned platform for ship-to-ship, ship-to-shore, sort of contested logistics sort of a platform. This is a 5-year competition where we have made significant progress already, where, I wish I could share the rendering here, but people can find that online, that literally, you remove the cockpit completely, and basically from the nose of the helicopter, you have another clamshell door that opens, and then you can fit in a payload and have the same kind of capability as you do on a 145 platform, except the difference being that it can be controlled through a little control panel on the helicopter, or even through a tablet remotely. So this is certainly the most exciting development for us in terms of those 3 strategic pillars that David talked about. When you talk about UAS platforms, there is the conventional acquiring conventional drones into your portfolio that Airbus Helicopters has done already. There is converting the existing helicopters into uncrewed platforms, and the third and the most critical, which we've also demonstrated successfully, is what we call the H teaming, where now the helicopter and the drone can work together, and somebody can control that through a little iPad at the back of the helicopter.
The other thing I would like to say as well is, in regards to airborne logistics connector that you referred to, we are also doing something similar within the competition on the 139 side. So we are also doing unmanned solution on the 139. But the one thing that we as OEMs have to take into consideration always is the support infrastructure that comes along with these aircraft. And it doesn't matter if it's a conventional helicopter, an unmanned helicopter, or a new development, new product. The support in training, but the support infrastructure needs to be there, especially when you're talking to the offshore energy market, or even the U.S. Army or military. That reliability, that dispatch reliability, is always going to be a key and significant. And that's where I think we as the OEM have a significant advantage, because we know what it takes to properly set up that support infrastructure. Those that are in, and I'm not talking about the drones, I'm talking more of the unmanned and eVTOLs that are currently coming onto the market. Yes, they are pushing forward towards certification and going into operation. However, the market is going to demand that the support matches the capability from an aircraft or an eVTOL perspective, and that is something that I see that might be lacking or in the secondary on the secondary platform once certification happens. And we all know that they have to work in parallel with each other.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Mike, on that. And that comes back to this dual use that we were talking about earlier. Then when you are developing these platforms on test beds and existing platforms that have already a sizable fleet deployed across the globe, there's a lot of commonality of parts and support that comes with it.
And from the end user's perspective, that risk mitigation or the risk exposure is significantly reduced, especially from a support and training perspective. So,
absolutely
agreed.
All right, thank you. I have another question more related to the cost of operation and the price of the helicopter. I've heard on the market that customers saying that the price of helicopters have increased significantly over the past 2 to 3 years, and the cost of support as well has increased significantly. So what is your response to that, and how do you mitigate that perception or concern? Are you providing the customer with solution to improve performance or reduce maintenance, increase reliability in order to mitigate this situation?
So perhaps just to start with, yes, everything has increased, but when you look at the inflation and the price increase on helicopters, actually the price increase of helicopters has been lower than the inflation. First point. So it means that we've been pretty tough with the way we are working, but also with suppliers. And sometimes it's not so easy because we are sometimes small players. Some of them may work for fixed wings, for example. So when you try to negotiate the way to leverage, it's a little bit, it's more difficult than on the fixed wings. But I would say that just to start with, I think it's important to keep in mind that the price of support and services and helicopters has increased at a lower pace than the inflation. So it means that actually, day-to-day life, our customers, they see a higher increase than actually on the helicopters. And then the only thing we can do is try to reduce, to be more efficient, to try to find sometimes new suppliers if they are interested. But once again, when you talk about suppliers in the aeronautical industry, it's pretty difficult to fight with them, knowing that actually they have the fixed wings, and fixed wings, when you compare the turnovers they have on the fixed wings and the turnovers they may have on helicopters, it's much more difficult to negotiate. So this is where we are, and we are still actually investigating, and we are doing our best actually to optimize the way we produce the helicopters, the way, so for example, when you look at the 160, when you look at the final assembly line, it's completely different of what we used to have some years ago, to be more efficient, to be more lean, and to save cost, and to be as cheap as possible, because we know that we have a competition, and the competition is doing also the same. So all in all, it's, I would say, this is where we are, and yeah.
Leonardo.
Okay. Giacomo,
Yeah, I'll go and you can complement. On our side, I do agree a lot with the comment at the beginning of David. Yes, the cost of the price of helicopters and the cost of our service has increased. But if you compare with the real life inflation or with other industry, capital intensive industry, I don't think we've been growing more than them. So there is a lot of tension that actually is being managed by the OEM. We are at the last part before the end user, but we have also, we are suffering, unfortunately, inflation trends from our supply chain. What we are doing, basically we are working in two directions, specifically to improve the overall cost of ownership of our helicopters. More and more investments on our side on the use of data, so investing in digitalization and algorithms to help our users to better predict the life of components according to their operations, so to adapt the maintenance plans in order to be more efficient and more built to suit according to the kind of operations. But to do this, we need to engage with them and to get the data from their operations. So this is very important. And one other things that we're doing is to push as much as possible, also providing good, let me say, monetary lever, the switch from typical time and material logistics support contract to performance-based or the so-called PBH support contract, where basically the burden from a planning perspective and the risk of failures, etc., is all taken by the OEM, and we basically provide parts according to the flight hours that the customers are logging. So those are two concrete examples on what we're doing in order to offset, of course, the increase of cost that we're suffering like any other industries, but trying to do things in a more efficient way.
Yes. To echo Giacomo's point, I think the collection of data, specifically not just from our helicopters, but from our operators globally, has been key to help offset the increasing pricing. And while in parallel, we as Leonardo, as the OEM, are putting in a bunch of service capabilities to help offset the costs that are going in there. So if you look at it from we're transitioning from a product-centric model to more of a partnership style approach, where we have a multitude of services, both on the support and training side, utilizing AI and business analytics to help not only our customers, but us prepare for supply chain management and planning that will help then reduce costs in the long run, right? So if we're able to work with our customer base on a predictive planning, saying you're going to operate in 500, 600 hours per year, we're able to sit down and say, okay, planning that out, we're going to hit such and such inspections. Let's start ordering the parts now, make sure that they're on the shelf. So it is a true digitalization and transition from a product and a support and training silo to these are integrated throughout. And by transforming this data into clear, let's call it dashboards and reliability analysis, our customers, our partners will be able to help us anticipate failures, anticipate that downtime, and then keep that reliability as high as possible, because that's ultimately where that cost lies. The less that they're flying, the more that cost actually is.
And finally, Mark, as you know, on life cycle costs, really time is money also for customers. So proximity matters. And so from that point of view, I can give you concrete examples of what we're doing in North America, where we've increased our dynamic component repair capability locally for the 135, 145. We've added another 10,000 square feet in our blade shop so that there's more stuff that can be done locally in close proximity with our customers, which can then, have better turnaround times, which in turn help customers save time, which saves money.
Thank you. So I guess we're coming to almost the end of this panel. Thank you for your comment. Do you want to make some kind of final comments at Leonardo and Airbus? Any final statement you would like to make about the industry or Leonardo and Airbus themselves? It looks like you are enjoying a very good market. It looks like the finance of the two companies are doing well. So what's next?
From our perspective, I think, yes, it is a good synthesis, but this does not mean that we have challenges. And specifically, we are continuing to invest because at the end of the day, it's an high technology industry. And if we do not continue to invest in products, technologies, and also processes and support capabilities, we will not be capable of delivering the value that our customers need.
Mm-hmm.
But we think helicopters will stay there for a long time. So we're excited about that because it's what we are good at.
Yes.
Mhm.
So fully share,
ahead.
Giacomo. I think that one of the challenges that actually is that we need to address as well is with fuel efficiency, everything related actually to emissions. At some point, we've seen that in the fixed wings, there have been huge improvements in terms of, I would say, efficiency or global efficiency of the operations. I think that actually on the helicopter, we need to find these breakthrough technologies. It's a battery, it's not good enough, so we need to be creative. Hybrid solutions may be one way to go. Eco mode systems as well. Optimization of the flight plan is also something. Predictive maintenance, being able actually to offer to the customers that is able to take off when actually he need it. So actually high level of availability. This is actually what we need to work on as well. But I have the feeling that actually when we talk about, the global industry today, for at least for us, it's our investments are pretty huge in future developments. The H140 is one example. We are still working on, implementing new solutions on even the existing fleet. So it's a permanent and recurrent investments that we are doing. But at the same time, we are chasing these new technologies. It's more complex than on the fixed wings. We have more leverage, I would say. We are a smaller industry, but we try to be as creative as possible actually to make it happen. And we are making good progresses. And we see that actually over the next years to come, actually there are new technologies that are likely to be implemented. They need to be safe. This is one of the challenges that we have, because you can be, if you are doing a drone that is 10 kilograms of weight, you can take risk if it collapses in the middle of nowhere. With a helicopter, you cannot do that. So we have also these constraints in terms of safety. But I would say that all the OEMs today are investing actually in this new technology. And the future is bright.
Well, thank you for these very encouraging statements for an industry that, of course, we all love. Emmanuel, the floor is back to you.
Thank you very much, Marc, Giacomo, Mike, David, and Nitin, for this very valuable conversation, for your perspective on the industry and insights on the market. Thank you to everyone joining us live or watching via replay. You can download the latest edition of Heli Market Trends on aeroasset.com/report. We look forward to see you next time.